Right. We should now be live. So, Sophia, you're on mute.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, welcome, Sophia. We just met like what, 5 minutes ago, officially.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Megan.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here, and I'm really interested to learn more about like your spiritual journey and what you do, and especially to learn about what bespoke affirmations are because like I was telling you before we got started that I heard somebody else like after I got connected with you talk about the bespoke affirmations, and so I was like, okay, now my curiosity is really piqued.
So where do we start? So where can we start?
Tell me a little bit about your journey since we're really just getting connected, and so other people in the group can know who you are.
All right. My name is Sophia Delgado Gulliver. I handle a brand called Convento. Convento is a wordplay with the word cuento in Tagalog or Filipino, which means stories.
Oh.
And our tagline is rewriting narratives or rewriting your narrative. So that also gets in line with bespoke affirmations. So uh, I stumbled upon my spiritual journey. It really sparked during the lockdown, so 2020. So that entire lockdown thing with COVID-19, when you don't have and everything stops in the world, and I was in my job where I was doing advertising and marketing. Uh, so during that time, I stumbled upon the Akashic Records, which is the library of all souls. And then that really that really made me curious about the maturity of the soul
Mm.
and how many lifetimes or past lives does the soul really have. Because what I sometimes you wonder, do you really believe that the soul just goes through one lifetime? And I know that there's like multiple conversations about this in Gaia in Gaia or other platforms. And so getting into my journey about it, it's I was rejecting the call for so long. I was reading myself and my friends most of the time. And then one day I got so tired of my when I got back to my advertising and marketing job, I got so tired of it that I booked a one-way ticket to a spiritual island in the Philippines called Siargao. And then and then because Siargao is kind of like the Bali of the Philippines, but it's less commercialized right now, so it's a really good time to go to the
Good to know.
island. It's a really good time to go to the island because it's not that booming with the with the commercialized businesses or franchises. So getting back into that, and that was around 2021, November 2021, and then uh, by December 2021, in the middle of that, I was just a, I just booked a ticket at the last minute to go home because I booked a one-way ticket, and I was told to go back for there's this some awarding that you have to attend, and I'm like, okay, books a ticket, and then day the day before I had to go had to go out of the island, the day before that, a typhoon comes in.
Oh my God.
Literally just keeping me stuck in this island. Uh, so the typhoon went in. So when the typhoon came in, there was no electricity, no water, no signal, no cash. So cash was like really king. You can't use the ATMs. Cash was king. And I barely had any cash, you know. And I'm like being silly. I felt very silly about it because earlier in my my soul journey in that island, I met with my friend who was a Reiki practitioner that I met there. And I told her, I felt like I have to pay you in cash because you're gonna need it. And then fast forward to that day, yeah, it was too advanced. Yeah, when in that island, really, it's like energy is so it's so powerful. You know, the divine feminine energy there is so powerful that if you were intuitive at the back of your head and you didn't know it, it will just spark it there. So,
Later on, can you put the name of the island so if anybody wanted to go there?
oh yeah,
Good.
where can I put it? Your chat.
Yeah, yeah, you can put it in there, and then I'll put it in the
Siargao, Philippines. There you go.
yeah.
Got it there. So anyway, so what happened there was all I had were like uh my decks, like my cards there. So the way I survived is bartering through cards and suddenly just reading palms.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if I can still do it now, but there it was like really effective. But yeah, there were like a lot of strange things happening to me while I was in that island. And I really just survived through that. Like that's how I bartered. I'm not vegan, but I was eating vegan food because I made spiritual connections in a resort. Some of my friends who were living who were in hotels let me eat around their hotels. And it just so happens that place I stayed there at was a concrete building.
Oh, nice.
So where I was staying became the evacuation center
Oh,
uh, on that day. So I felt I was very grateful that I survived that day. I was somewhere with a concrete building. I was I had all of my things, and the way I flee the island, I didn't have to go through much. I felt like I didn't have to go through much suffering because a lot of people really had to find their way to get out, had to find cash. Like I said to my friend that, oh, you're gonna need it. You're not gonna need this cash. You're gonna need this in cash. And then what happened to most people was they were getting charged around if in USD that would be around maybe $30 to get out of the island or more, sometimes even more, like up till $50. And it was just overcharging people at that time. I couldn't forget that moment where people had to really scramble for the cash and scrimp for the cash. Uh so after that, I stayed for 7 days. I stayed for another 7 days within the island. And the day I had to leave, I didn't have to go through what everybody else had to go through, where they were waiting in long lines for 3 days, rain or shine, and had to leave their items around because they couldn't fit the planes. I only had to pay, how much was it? Maybe in around $600, 300 pesos. So that's $6. I
wow.
only had to pay $6 to get to the airport. And then 10 minutes in, with all of my belongings, I was already riding off,
Wow. Wow.
riding off in a military charter plane.
Wow.
Uh, it was it was surreal. It was very surreal.
Yeah.
When when you feel like you've been to a different world, and then you arrive in civilization and everything just in reality just pours down once you turn on your phone.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what happened. That's what happened to me. I think the trauma was really like the feeling of oh, I was gone for this long and people were looking for me. So that was like, I couldn't process that. But then after that, it's like, there were a lot of realizations on how to handle certain situations. I think that was one of the biggest shadow work in my life, where because a lot of some people go through near death experiences to wake up, really wake up and believe in something. For me, it was that was the cataclysm. That was the cataclysm, going through the stranded in an island type of thing. And then I went through a lot of karmic knots. And then after the last karmic knot, 1 or 2 weeks after I meet my husband,
Oh wow.
because like the karmic knots are very important for you to get rid of before you actually get into your manifestations. My manifestation was, to I was saying in my journey that in my manifestation is it's attaining love, attaining abundance and stuff like that. And I said, I'm not the only time I'm going through like coaching and everything that's spiritual is when I settle down. Is when I settle down. I feel like I deserve it. Then again, we always are worthy. It's just believing and being that you're worthy. So my bespoke affirmation was to attract my husband, attract that person. So I after getting rid of the karmic knot, I immediately meet him, and then 3 months after that, we become official, and three
Oh
months
wow.
after that, he proposes, or we decided to get married, and 3 months after that, we we got married, and 3 months after that, I got pregnant, and then so on and so forth. So
Great.
so like it takes a lot when you do shadow work, like the light work that I do. It's being able to narrow down the things that you want and filtering it out, and able to know the being able to know what you want exactly to create that bespoke affirmation. The bespoke affirmation is meant for you and only you, so it only works for you, right?
Right.
So like for me, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and I think like the hardest thing with manifestation, and I think probably where a lot of people struggle is not knowing what they actually want.
Yeah,
You know, or like they hear what somebody else wants and they're like, oh, that sounds good, and it really isn't their thing, so they end up sabotaging or
yeah,
you
yeah.
know
There are a lot. We fail to realize that there are a lot of self-destructing things that we do that get in between the manifestation. I was in a session this morning with somebody, and she was saying that she feels like she's being kind and she's being aligned with her manifestations. I was doing an Akashic Records reading with her, and then we dive in, and I said, and she said, she with her exes, she's she's in good terms with them. She comforts them, and
mm,
then she's trying to manifest this man into her life, you know. And I asked her, so the thing is, are you comfortable with manifesting a man subconsciously who is also comforting his
mm,
exes? And then she realizes that, oh man, she was subconsciously manifesting somebody that wasn't aligned with to something she actually wants, because she was doing something she doesn't want her future husband wants. So
yeah,
like, you
probably
know,
something she doesn't really want to do, but like if you're not willing to like fully break away from something, and so I'm gonna ask you like, how do you combine the bespoke affirmations with the Akashic records? Like, do you help somebody first come up with what their affirmation is and then use the Akashic records to clear things out? Or do you work first in their Akashic records and help them to come up with their affirmation?
So I do first the Akashic Records. So this helps me get to know who they are, what their soul journey is, what their soul contract is. And then I get we get into the light work process where we're doing the shadow work, according to that.
Okay.
And then create the bespoke affirmations after we address the shadow work.
Nice.
So it's really just trying to filter everything out, realizing what you truly want and what your principles are, what your values are, if it's aligned to the manifestation, and if you're doing things that are actually aligned to those principles
Yeah.
and values, you know. And sometimes we forget that we desire things that's not really aligned to our principles and our values that we uphold. And and principles value and values vary depending on what your journey is anyway. That's
Right.
why I was saying, one's manifestation could be different from another. The way they do it is different
Right.
from one another.
Right. Um, and something that you were saying kind of like rattled something in my head. Yeah, because it's like our values are kind of that like the law of vibration. It is what is aligning us to that. So like, if you're saying that your value is this, but you're choosing something over here, like your vibration isn't in alignment.
Yeah, you're not getting into the state of being. You have to get to the state of being. Doing the shadow work, turning it into light work thing is turning into the state of being aware, and
Hmm.
being aware of what you want and being aware of the things that you don't want. They do say that the habit, it's not a habit. It stops being a habit until you're aware of it. And then you're aware of it and you still do it. It becomes, you're just being tolerant.
Yeah.
You're not really implicating change into your life.
Yeah. And
And
I really like what you said about like shadow work that you turn into light work, because I think so many people get so caught up in the shadow work, and it almost becomes like this badge of honor, like I'm doing the shadow work, I'm doing the shadow work.
it's
But then if you
dangerous.
don't come out of the shadows and bring it into the light, like you're just staying down in the shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's one of the conversations I had with one of my friends was, it's so dangerous to just stay in the shadows, you know. Although I could say that, because I was watching Dr. Joe Dispenza the other week, and he was saying about the blackness and being okay with the nothingness, so you can be aware. And I realized that, you know it's really being in the state of so much light that you're comfortable with the darkness and
yeah.
put the light onto the shadows.
Yeah. And I don't like I don't necessarily feel like the nothingness is like dark and horrible.
Yeah,
Like to me, it's like, when I've reached those states, like doing breath work or other things, one, it's like this, it's like I'm everything all at once and I'm nothing all at once. And it's like this feeling of pure love
yeah,
when I reach those states. And I'm
yeah,
reading this book called The Nine Faces of Christ, and like the initiations he went through to become the Christ. And one of the things that was recently said was that like as soon as light, the light of God, whatever, like came into being, it naturally created the shadow, because like it's so much light that there's all the reflections, and then from like from that darkness, the reflections, came the demonic stuff. So everything that like God was creating, this demonic energy was creating an opposing energy. And it's not
yeah,
until we um pretty much, I think, like bring all of that darkness, like into the light, release it from ourselves.
And accept it as well, that accept that it's happened.
Yep.
Accept that it's happened. I think that's one of the hardest things that people uh encounter, acceptance and accountability.
Hmm.
With what I do, it's really embracing that acceptance and accountability, and know that what your values are and how you can become honest. Because a lot of people put the honesty in their values and principles.
Mm.
And some people fail to realize that, you need to realize that being accountable for the things that happen in your life
Mm.
is a part of your shadow work and light work. How are you going to let people relate to you if you don't acknowledge this part of you?
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a practicing type of industry, or coaching type of industry, and you always wash your hands. You can't always wash your hands. You have to, if you have like law cases in your life, or you've gone through some really dark stuff, you gotta acknowledge that you would not escaped it, but has risen
Yeah.
through it. You gotta acknowledge these things to get that respect, to give yourself that respect.
Yeah. And because everybody else is going through that, like I know one of the women in my group, like, she was talking the other week about um not being deserving of things because like she's done things, in her past. It's like we all have, every single one of us have done things, said things from a place of wounding, whether conscious of that wounding or not. We have done things like that's, like they joke and like that's what your 20s is about, is like, making all the bad decisions, and learning and growing from it. Like you have to go through those things in order to, it's like an initiation, a day-to-day life initiation. And like also in the book, that the Nine Faces of Christ, it was talking about like there's three major dark nights of the soul. One is the dark night where like you're letting go the body. Then the other one is the mental. And then the third one is the spiritual. And the mental one, being kind of that worthiness and I'm not deserving of this. I'm not worth being this. Like, he was struggling with like, he had just gotten anointed as the Christ within like this whole other initiation thing, and not like the what's talked about in the Bible. And he's like, I'm so unworthy of this. And he's like asking all these other monks and people that he has trained with and his gurus, and all of them are saying, we're not worthy, you should check with this person. I'm not worthy, you should check with this person. Like, um, and it was like and the other thing that they said is that when you're going through those dark nights, you're either going to choose like the dark path and give up, or you're going to go through that process, and it might be a long journey, it might be a short journey, but once you let it go, it's like you go on to the next stage, or you completely break from the path.
Yeah, that's really the thing. I forget what I was gonna say, but when you talk about paths and the dark night of the soul, it's really the tendency of people forgetting where they come from, and because it's their self-limiting beliefs. That's what I'm gonna say. The self-limiting beliefs are it's also another very powerful thing that keeps us from getting what
Yeah.
our manifestations are. And these self-limiting beliefs, uh they I've recently got when you go upon some groups, or some spiritual friends resharing stuff, and then there's this one clever person who asked, what if you were if you if pretend he or she asked ChatGPT to pretend he was Satan.
Mm.
And what would he do to prevent a person or a light worker
I saw that post. Yeah.
from yeah, right, from ascending. And it's one of those is like imposter syndrome, self-limiting beliefs. And now it's like whenever time I talk down onto myself, I remember that it's one of the biggest things that the darkness wants you to do
Yep.
is to question your path.
Yep. I mean, and that was like exactly, I remember like my mental dark night of the soul and going through that. Like I had been on my path for a while. Had trained in quantum healing with a particular teacher, and I was about ready to step into like teaching this person's stuff. And like for a few days, almost up until like maybe the day before I was supposed to start teaching, like I wasn't worthy, I wasn't lovable, I was evil, I was dark, I shouldn't be doing this stuff, I should just end it all. Like all those dark thoughts. I literally messaged like another teacher and like asked her, I was like, can you please check my field, and like, because if I am evil, like I need to not do this stuff. And then all of a sudden, like I stopped. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and I found like all the places like, no, I have been loved here, and I have loved here, and whether I did something dark in the past, like I'm very loving, and these are all the examples. And like I had to go through that process of like finding where all the lies that like Satan is telling you to like take you out were false. And I tell that to people, like you need to like when those thoughts are happening, you have to go through and find where it's not true, even if it's like a sliver of,
Yeah.
because that's the only way to break that hold. And it was
Yeah.
it was like almost like this snap, and I was out of it. And not that I don't have my moments of like, but never like that. I mean, I literally was about to like just give it all and literally go that up, take that other path. Um, and so yeah, it's hard going through it. And it's so interesting because like I think even like the year or so before COVID hit, like the number of suicides that were happening in like large chunks of people. Like I think maybe the October of 2019, like I knew 5 people within like a month or two, or either I knew them directly or I knew from people who knew them, of people who had committed suicide. And then all of like the overdoses and other things that happened like during 2020 and 2021. Like, it's heartbreaking that people hit that dark night of the soul and didn't ask for help and didn't and chose to end it instead. And it breaks my heart. And it's one of the things that drives what I do, because I'm like, hell no. Satan, you're not gonna win today.
The best bespoke affirmation for that, it's empowering to overcome these type of challenges on like putting the light on these self-limiting beliefs and imposter syndromes type of situations. I understand that because like since I've gotten rid of it, I feel like the days before I have to do talks or major events, I would feel like I'd be getting sick or poorly. And I'm like, no, this is just something trying to get in my way and you can't
Yep.
stop me. You
Yep.
know? Like, and also like there was this one event where right after the event, it was a very good day. And then my family, my I was I we were in a van with my family, and then it we got into a car crash. And I was very grateful because I we no one got hurt. It was just the car, it was just the van. But I realized that the van hit at my area. The van was our van got hit
Oh. Oh, wow.
on my area, and then I always I always get burned on the left part of my
Mm.
hand or left part of my side, and my tattoo of an evil eye
Oh.
is on my left hand. So these like small implications of trying to poke at me. I know that I know that the dark side is trying to poke at me and challenge me on my left side.
Right.
But
Well, and the left is the feminine, so like the divine feminine energy.
yeah. And because that's I guess that's one of the most the strongest part of the strongest part of me.
Mm,
So they do say that the first thing that they try to hit is either the weakest or the strongest.
mm.
And I guess I got to the point I'm balanced. I'm very grounded. I have 7 Capricorns in my chart.
I have a
So
lot of
literally
grounding energy too, and sometimes I feel like I'm too grounded, and it's like
you're grounded.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grounded. I was like, I was like, now I know why I don't do astral. Because I'm so grounded. But yeah, when you talk about the inner demons and stuff like that, they really try, no matter how strong you are. Imagine the strongest person
hmm.
can still be touched by that. The
Yeah.
happiest person in the world that seems to be so happy. Example, Robin Williams,
Yes.
right? He seems to be the happiest guy you could ever see. And then he
Yeah.
commits,
Well,
you
and I
know?
think it goes to like what you were saying of being honest. Because like if you're pretending to be happy, and even if you really like parts of you really are, there is a part of you that isn't. And if you're not sharing that with the world or telling somebody, like they're just seeing you as like the funny guy, and then there's nobody there for you, or they're all
Yeah,
coming to you with their problems because they think, oh, you're funny or you're strong or you're this. We have to allow the parts of
to
us that
release.
aren't, yeah, like
Yeah,
we are all, more than one dimensional beings, like and we need to like one we need to see that like and intuit and be empathic towards others that and see like, oh, I feel the sadness there, and let them know it's okay to express it,
yeah,
and hold the space for them.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because I think like for me, it's like I my darkest n- my darkest actually is usually when I hold events like the ones that I'm gonna hold soon, and usually the hardest part of living are financial struggles.
Mhm.
So I guess that's why a lot of people also cut the line are financial struggles. And like for because this is my second time running an event. It's called Soul Go.
Mhm.
So so my last year was like I feel like my my finances were being scrunched up. Like anything that was supposed to be released wasn't getting released. And then, you know, I was really struggling. I was getting false downloads. I was being having my imposter syndromes. And then, you know, in the end of the day, just talking about it helps me helps me a lot. Like, because if I didn't talk about it, my husband wouldn't be helping me building it, making sure everything goes through. Even now, it's like, you know, if I didn't talk about anything to my husband, he wouldn't be helping me as well. If I he I wouldn't be doing the events that I'm doing today if I didn't talk to my husband. So I'm very grateful to have like this person in my life that I attracted and manifested, that who also helps me with my path, even if he doesn't believe in this stuff.
It's just that of like, is he also on the spiritual path or
No, no, no. That's the other thing about people need to know. Your partner does not have to be as spiritual as you. They just have to be having that respect and those values that you have and those principles that you have. Beliefs are just those religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs could also be just getting in the way. Because you gotta be open to receiving. And what if the person that you're just receiving is somebody who's just ultimately respectful? And it only also means that you just gotta just lighten up. Lighten up. Don't be so offended. Just don't let anything offend you.
yeah,
Sometimes it is a little funny, little funny. He calls it mumbo jumbo sometimes, and I do find it funny because sometimes it does look like mumbo jumbo. It does look like the funny things that they put on TV. Sure, but he doesn't. He does. But the thing is, if he does disrespect me, he wouldn't be supporting me.
right.
But the thing is, he is supporting what I do, and
Yeah,
I think that's the most important part in a partner,
yeah,
in a manifesting a partner, is having somebody who supports you regardless of your beliefs, having that unconditional love, but having the same principles, same values.
yeah. I love that because I think it's again like so many people get caught in the I want, a man who's on the same path as me. Um, so it's nice to hear that like he doesn't have to be or she doesn't have to be. It's really that respect and that love and having somebody that and I think that especially like so much of the spiritual work that we do, like, you know, it is important for us individually to be grounded, but we do so much work up here that to have a partner that who can ground us down um and bring that back is so important. More important than
Yeah.
I think we sometimes think. And so finding that partner, or even like if both of you do spiritual work, like let them,
Divine masculine.
you hold the grounding, and then when you're doing this, he's holding the grounding or your partner, like to be able to um help each other instead of either both people being like way up here and
Woo, yeah.
nothing is ever really getting done, or both people being so grounded that again nothing is getting done
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so when you're too grounded it's so heavy to move through the earth, but it's so important, like we need to like pull the energy from the upper realms through our bodies and into the earth, and then the earthly energy back up, and so it's nice to hear somebody actually talk about that.
Yeah, I guess it's understanding what true divine masculine and true divine feminine actually is. And divine masculine is actually grounding. It's grounding energy and being able to understand that you need that in your life. You need that balance in your life. You can't be all divine feminine.
Yes.
And for you to manifest somebody in your life as well, it's also embodying both ends, understanding both ends, so you can empathize with that divine masculine energy or divine feminine energy that you're welcoming into your life.
Yeah.
That's parallels.
Yeah, and I think that's also another wonderful thing because like I just had a flash when you said that of like if you don't understand like the masculine energy, the divine masculine energy, I think that's where like the manipulative feminine energy comes from of like you should just support me, you should just give me things, that's your job, that's like what you're supposed to be doing, and you don't understand the struggle to like be able to one provide all of that, to support all that, to ground all of that, where it's like if you understand what it takes, it's like you can really truly love and appreciate the masculine.
Yeah. Yeah, because like it's funny when people are so mad on how the divine masculine is when it's something that they actually need.
Mhm.
Like there would be so many. I'm not no offense against some feminists, but but uh when once you keep saying that you don't need a man to do this, you do that, it's taking away the concept of that partner that you want to attract. Because it's you have to attract a partner that you know that is stable in all lines, all parts of the section. If you need that, vice versa, vice versa. And if you want to attract somebody, you gotta not disregard these certain aspects in the male spectrum.
Yeah.
Because the divine masculine spectrum is so important to have that balance. And
Mhm.
if you don't realize that balance, that's why one, has a really hard time attracting that. Sometimes they end up to what? Becoming a sugar mommy, paying for that refrigerator, paying for that house, paying for that TV, paying for everything.
Or just always like that over mothering, kind of like the start of the
Yeah,
conversation where
yeah,
your friend was still, or your client was still kind of taking care of all her, even just emotional support of like that mothering, it'll be okay, and
yeah, yeah,
over
yeah.
giving
Yeah,
without,
and funny enough, you would see it so much with like female celebrities, right? Female celebrities babying their boys
yeah,
because they've manifested so much wealth in in their lives that they forget that they need somebody who's as deserving as they are with
yes,
each other. But when you're in a place of so much abundance, you deserve somebody with that abundance as well.
yes. That's yes. And I think that even goes back to like the whole like cash is king thing at the start of the conversation. And like that kingly energy. And I think like, taking it into a different realm of like so much of our governments and other organizations, they want to take that kingly energy away from us, through control and manipulation and poisoning our food and everything. And it's like we all need to stand up and say no to this, that like we're going to hold on to our kings.
Yeah, in the end of the day, we have to realize that everything that's outside is something that's beyond our control. The real question is, what are you going to be doing about something that's within your control?
Mhm.
Right? That's where it is really. Manifestation is beyond just affirming it. The bespoke affirmations that you make is that's the really the actions that you take towards that manifestation. You can't just light incense or candle or cord cut, you know. You gotta do these actions towards that, so the universe knows that you are making space to receive, actually making space to receive. I
Yeah.
think one of the most powerful things that I've ever done since moving here was I let go a lot of the self-limiting beliefs that I had within the superstitions that I had
Mm.
when I was in Asia, because Asia is a very superstitious region.
Yeah.
Every part of Asia is superstitious. And another thing was letting go of the retrogrades.
Mm. Mm.
Like letting go of these retrogrades, making sure that, okay, I put my boundary on these retrogrades and not let me be affected by them. And to my surprise, then the last retrograde that we had, Mercury retrograde, was in conjunction with the ghost month of Asia. So can you imagine Asia just all those spiritual Asians just going crazy all around? I was like looking at my feed and I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. X delete, delete, delete. Remove from my feed. And then I was so surprised on the change that it brought me, because abundance was there, and I didn't feel like I was being, I was getting stopped by the things that I was meant to do. So it also takes the control within yourself, how you're going to deal with these things. Are you going to choose to believe them, or are you going to choose to take that power
Yep.
and overcome them?
Yep. Or even if like you do have like a communication problem, like this platform isn't working. There are so many other platforms, and you just have to
Yeah,
works. Like,
yeah,
something not working is not a call that, oh, God doesn't want me to do it. No, there's something
yeah,
trying to block you, and you've got to find the way around.
yeah. Find your way around it. You're exactly, just think about what you can do on your end to make things happen and let yourself receive.
Yes. Yep. And I like what you said about actions. I don't know if you knew this, but I created a 369 journal. So, you have your daily affirmations and you do it like 3 times a day, but you have like, what are your actions towards that goal? So you have like, I broke it out into like 3 actions towards your goal every day. And then like whatever chores you have to do for the day and the healthy activities, like, because it is true, you've got to take some kind of action.
Yeah, you need to take that action to show that you are doing that change.
Hmm.
That because that change implicates the abundance that you're receiving, really. It's leading to that state of being,
Yep.
of the manifestation,
Yeah.
who you are in that manifestation.
Yep. Like one of my teachers, mentors, coaches, it was always, it's be, do, have. So like, what do you want to be? What do you have to do to be that? And then once those two things are in place, then you have the thing that you're desiring, because
Yeah,
you've already been taking action towards it, and it's going to happen. And it's so important to not get like, when you're in that being doing cycle, like it, you have to ignore what's happening around you, like all the things that are saying, oh, like, this isn't, it's not in your reality. Why are you doing it? You have to just like put the blinders on and be like, I don't care that this is showing up right now, because this
yeah,
this right here is my goal. This is where I'm moving towards, and none of this stuff matters. I have to deal with it, and it's there, but this is my goal. And I, that's the other thing. Like, I think it's without that like bespoke, without that like one, this is what I'm focusing on until it actually shows up. It's like, oh well, if it's not showing up right away, then I must, I need to maybe do this other thing. Like I have to change what that affirmation is. Or the other thing is like the bargaining with God of like, well, if you give me this, then like I'll do this, this, and this. Doesn't work out.
no, no, it doesn't work that way. It's really another thing is it's really just unlearning all of these other things that that's been being fed to us, knowing which thoughts belong to us.
Mm.
Because it's really we have to rewire on the things that we've learned within throughout our life. I'm not saying everybody has like parental issues, but a lot of other things that we go through in our lives are these ancestral cycles where we are being fed this type of information of because of what the things that they've went through, you know and it's just we have to unlearn we have to unlearn this and know what our thoughts are, and also beyond that, it's the stuff that others project towards us of the things that they can't do because that's not their manifestation.
Right.
People, when people tell you you can't do this, you can't do that, they're talking about their own limits, not yours. You gotta have to always go back to what you believe in, what your values are, what your principles are, and then you make your own judgment. You make your own decisions. That's what stops a person from making their own life-changing decisions,
Mhm.
is when they let other people's thoughts intrude them.
Yep. Yep. And I think that goes back to like kind of the whole principle of your business is like rewriting that story,
Yeah, rewriting that story.
rewriting like what's possible for you. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that, and I love how that is, really tied to the manifestation and the affirmation. So, um, like some of the work I do is, the timeline repair as well. Of like, and I don't know if you know this or not, but like, there have been quantum physicists that have actually studied this, where like
Yeah.
they did experiments, and they would. There was one time where they recorded something, and then it was like a random generator type thing, so they knew what the randomness should be, and then they sent that video to somebody else to get them to like if it was like say yes or no's to get more yeses, for example. So it should have been like 50-50 yes no. When they had the person sit with it and try to get more yeses, and then they watched the video, there were more yeses. So it was saying like, what was random then became unrandom, so you can go back in time and change that story, and it rewrite the whole future.
Yeah.
So, it's like I love this stuff. All this woo-woo stuff really is based on science.
Yeah, it is, because it's all based on energy. And the thing is, that's why it's called metaphysics. You
Hmm.
know, energy attracting energy. It all just goes back into certain things. And it's in the end of the day, it's just being open. And then they talk about the placebo effect as well. And the
Hmm.
placebo effect, the thing is, if it works, why go against it?
Exactly.
You That's how the placebo effect, what it does is just really take that momentum.
Hmm.
So if you want something to work for you, you got to keep ticking that momentum, because besides our negative cycles, our shadow work, there are also the light work, are all those positive cycles.
Right.
So figure out what you're doing right. What am I doing right, and how can I keep going at that momentum so I keep receiving abundance, right? So there's like another thing about that.
Yeah. And I think that even ties to like, your corporate, world, because marketing and all that kind of stuff is like, what are we doing right? Let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
How can we shift the rest of the story to like, get us where we want to go? So like, your career was setting you up for exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. At the back of my head, I'm just really marrying that together. That's why most of my clients, if I'm going to profile my clients, they're mostly doctors, lawyers,
Now.
lawyers, everybody who's corporate, entrepreneurs, regardless if it's hospitality or tech or anything. It's a strange profiling when I do things, but I guess because I attract who I was at the same time, you
Yeah.
know. So that's also a part of the abundance mindset. It's you attract who you are. So I guess because I also understand the profiling and ads and stuff like that. But that helps. That's the reason why I went through that journey. If I didn't go through my advertising and marketing journey, I wouldn't be where I am, and I wouldn't be able to help the clients that I helped. So I'm very grateful for that shadow part of my life. I say thank you to it and goodbye.
But even like, my corporate job, I'm a technical writer. So like taking complex concepts and putting them into words that people understand. And that's,
Yeah.
even in the spiritual work that I do, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, yeah, because that's important to. address your audience? How are you gonna connect? Like I said, the shadow part of you is something that connects to your audience,
Mhm.
to the people that you need to give light to.
Yep. So, this was a great conversation. I really love this. We're getting to the top of the hours, and I want to be mindful of
Yeah, yeah.
everyone's time. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to have a reading with you?
So they can get in touch with me at Convento. I'll put it here at Convento, and then www.convento.com. Then if they're from the Philippines or here from the UK, because I'm bringing my events here into the UK as well. So Full Glow Society is what I created for community based.
Oh, nice.
I was aware that I can't turn everybody into my client, but I could be the bridge of connecting souls to the practitioners or coaches that they're meant to be with,
I
you
love that.
know? So that's what my initiative is. I that's how I also get practitioners because I also teach the Akashic Records and my light work course to others. Those bespoke affirmations, how to teach or coach other people. So I do that as well. We also do astrology.
Wow.
So yeah, I have a full team. I have a team for astrology because I don't want to do everything. I think one of the biggest things that I've also learned within the journey is to know how to delegate.
Yes.
Don't let yourself take all the work. You deserve rest.
Well, and I think like it is about collaboration, like
Yeah,
moving out of that corporate mindset, that competition, and it's
yeah.
more the collaboration.
Collaboration.
And, and like even within corporations, you have the collaboration, you have all the different like departments and stuff, and they all work together. Um,
Yeah,
one of the things that I would love to do in the future, like here in the States, is whether I do it online or like an actual like retreat event, like you come and you pay and you're going to see multiple practitioners because I think one, we all hold, um, even if we do like the same thing, we all hold a different mirror to reflect back to the person. We all have our own experiences and all the knowledge that we've gained that we see the same thing from either a different angle, um, or somebody sees this part and we see this part because we all hold a key to the puzzle. We all hold a puzzle piece that like gets snapped into place and you see the whole picture eventually. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Because uh, the thing is, I realize in the Philippines, I realize that in that industry of like spirituality industry, I don't see events supporting other events.
Mhm.
So on my end, I try to sponsor other events, support other events, so their businesses thrive, and I get to promote my own events and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Now, I didn't understand why would there be some sort of competition when you can just support each other, and why decline support
Yeah.
from another?
Exactly. And that's why I wanted these wise warrior conversations. I mean, one just either to talk like all things spiritual, but most of the people that I know have like spiritual businesses, like we should support each other. Like
Yeah,
the people in my group should know who you are and your people should know who I am and we should all like support each other. And
yeah, because like who knows? Like, one thing may not work for another, but another thing may work
Mhm.
for, there's maybe somebody from my end, the things that I do maybe not for them, maybe they're for you.
Mhm.
you know that's really the beauty of being being a practitioner and being in a space where there's a lot of you. You just you just know that who comes to you is meant to come to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I've learned throughout this, like I know when somebody finds me and makes a transaction with me, they're meant to find me and they're meant to open that part of them.
Yep. Yep. And I don't know about for you, but like I find like, I have not that I don't have people outside of this realm, but like I have a certain type of client that like I
Yeah.
I know that when the person comes to me, I'm like, oh, you've got a big mission. Like,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm here to help people with. And so like I know like when they want to work with me, that's what I'm helping them to unlock. So
Yeah, it's just that knowing it's very powerful when you know what you're attracting and you know who you're attracting
yeah,
and trusting that is what you're attracting.
yeah,
That's the biggest thing that a practitioner can do for themselves.
yeah. So well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. Um,
Thank you as well. Thank you as well for your time and, my schedule and everything.
And if anybody has any questions, like if you're watching on the replay, you do pound replay, and we'll get questions answered. I'll also be uploading this to YouTube, so if you're watching from YouTube, please subscribe. Put any comments in the chats there, and I'll share that link with you once I upload it, so you can share it with your audience, and you know, kind of spread the joy, spread the information.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much. Oh, it's a kitty cat.
yeah,
Is it a kitty cat? Yes, it is a kitty cat.
this is little Bodie man. So my old roommate we had a hurricane came through, so I have house guests, including two extra kitties.
All right. Thank you very much.
Travels tomorrow, and I hope your event in the Philippines is beyond successful.
Yeah, hopefully, well, no, I know it will be a success. I am attracted. It's already here.
Yes.
It's already here.
Well, and I definitely have quite a few people in my group who are in the UK. So um, you know, please share like when you start to have events.
Oh, definitely.
Please share and Um, you know, I so grateful to have met you. I hope
So
you
grateful as well.
conversation in the future.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm so grateful for the downloads that I've also received from you.
Well,
Thank you very much.
you're
Oh,
welcome.
also, could you send me that book? That
I'll send you a link to the Nine Faces of Christ. I definitely recommend.
yes, yes. Thank you very much.
You're
Have
welcome.
an amazing day ahead.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right.
Oh, hold on. Let me.
All good.